Welcome to this video message on taking control of your finances. This is the fourth in our four-part series. We looked at the start about making a list, that is, knowing what's going on in your finances, knowing what's going out and what's coming in. In the second part, we looked at making a plan, that is, balancing your budget, organising yourself so that your income matches your outgoings. In the third part, we looked at making it happen. It's the most challenging part of all. That is staying with the budget, keeping on track, saying no to yourself from time to time so that you can say yes to the things that you really want. And finally, in this fourth part of the series, we're going to look at making an impact, getting to the end of this process and celebrating your achievements. So we're going to talk about that right now. It says in Hebrews chapter 12 and verse 11, all discipline for the moment seems not to be joyful. And maybe that's where you're at right now in your finances. You're getting yourself on track and it's not joyful. All discipline for the moment seems not to be joyful but sorrowful. Yet to those who have been trained by it, afterwards it yields the peaceful fruit of righteousness. So we're talking in this message about the afterwards, about when you finally get there. You've done the making the list, you've done the making the plan, you've done the staying on track, and so you get there. You achieve your goal of financial order and financial independence. And so when you get there, there are benefits that you enjoy. And some of these benefits are personal. You have the daily things that you need. You're able to provide for the special things. You're in control of your finances and your decisions. You're not plagued by debt. You're free from financial anxiety. You're able to make choices about your work and your retirement rather than have choices forced on you by necessity and by others. And you're overflowing with thankfulness because you have the things you need. And you can celebrate your successes, big and small. But the benefits are not only for you, there are also benefits for others, because when you reach this place of success, you can overflow with generosity. You can help others to grow. Now, I don't mean help others out by enabling their irresponsibility. Sometimes if you have money and someone else doesn't, you think, oh, I'll bail them out. But you can bail someone out, especially a family member, which causes harm to their soul. If you've got a family member, a child or an older child who has borrowed in your handbag and used your credit card to buy stuff online, don't just pay the bill. Deal with the character issue that's there. So don't bail out your friends from their irresponsibility. Give them help by all means. But the best help you can give them is to help to get themselves in order. If you continually bail out someone, you'll have to do it again and again. But not only are you losing continually, they're losing. They need someone in their life who can say to them, you must pay what you owe. You must change your behaviour rather than you making irresponsible choices and me picking up the tab. It's not right for me, but it's not right for you either. So for others, you give them help that empowers them to live a better life. Help them over hurdles where they have difficulty affording something that they need, and you can be supportive to them. You can also build achievements with others by working together in a church or a charity. You can, by your contribution, combined with other people's contribution, build something that's much larger than you could have done by yourself. You can also build a culture of generosity, a culture of building this church or charity into where you dream for it to be. You can also show your good example to others, and so they can learn to manage their finances. You also have a good future in that you leave a legacy of provision, rather than leaving a legacy of debt. I have one friend, and she had a lot of credit card debt, and then she got married. So guess what was one of her wedding presents to her new husband? Her debt. I mean, it had to go somewhere. So they shared it then and eventually cleared it. But you can leave a legacy that's better to the other people in your life. Whether it's at the end of your life or at other times, you leave a legacy of provision. You leave a legacy of example. And you can look forward with anticipation rather than with dread. And you can get ready for the next big thing in your life. Whatever that is, saving for college or saving for your children's education or retirement or something else, you can plan for that because you're in control of your finances now. So these are the goals you're pursuing as you're making the small decisions. So keep that in mind. As you're making small, difficult decisions, remember, there is a good future in store for you, and that's what you're choosing. When you say no to that donut that you can't afford, you're saying yes to that better future that you want. Okay, just to say, there will be setbacks along the way. Don't be discouraged. Sometimes you will be careful with all the €1 and the €5, and suddenly a bill will hit you for €1,000, and you'll think, what's the point of minding the small amounts when these big amounts come? Don't be discouraged. You just keep on being resilient and being faithful, and you are building here not just a financial future, but you're building the kind of character that can press forward into a better future. So don't think that it's not worthwhile. You're building character resilience for the future. And so when there's a setback, it's a challenge to you to press on with being faithful and with managing your finances in the way they should be managed. Now, I want to say something about faithfulness and faith, because these two can seem to conflict. We are called to be faithful, and that involves being sensible, being careful, being considered. Like Jesus said, who is the faithful and sensible steward whom the master will put in charge of his household to give them their food at the proper time? You know, someone who plans and makes provision and organizes things. A faithful servant. You and I, we're called to be faithful servants. But we're also called to have faith. And faith involves having courage and taking risks. And sometimes going forward before you see the outcome or how it's going to work out. There is a tension between these two things. But the tension is resolved by pursuing both faith and faithfulness. Pursue both of those virtues. Don't use one of these virtues to excuse your lack of the other. Okay, so you have faith. You think God will provide. God always provides for me. That's true. God always does. But that's not a reason not to be faithful. If today God provides in abundance for you, don't just flitter it away carelessly. He's given you more than enough. What will you do with that extra? Will you share it with someone else who's in need? Will you store it up for tomorrow when there may be leaner times, as they did in the wilderness on the day before the Sabbath? The slothful man does not roast his prey, says the Proverbs. He gets a big bonanza, but he doesn't make the most of it. So although you have faith, and yes, God is your provider, hallelujah, treat his gifts with the honour they deserve. Value his gifts and make the most of them. Don't say, well, God will provide more tomorrow. I can just sort of eat what I want and toss the rest away. No, you be faithful as well as having faith. So don't use your faith to excuse your lack of faithfulness. And don't use your faithfulness to excuse the lack of faith. Don't be so well organised that you don't trust God and that you don't listen to his voice. And if he says, give €20 to that person, you say, but I can't afford €20. It's not in the budget. If God is speaking to you, that takes precedence over anything that I say here or over anything that's written in your budget. Now, don't be foolish about it. Sometimes people have a personality where they like the irregular, they like the spontaneous, and it's not so much the leading of the Holy Spirit as just the kind of personality they have. So you just be careful about both of these things. Pursue faith. Listen to the voice of God and do what he says. Take the risks he calls you to take. But also be faithful, be sensible, be careful, make the most of your opportunities. Rather than just saying, hey, God will show up tomorrow and it'll all be fine again. I don't need to be careful. No, you do the best on both of these counts, faith and faithfulness. Don't forget this. Now, this is not the end. We have gone through our finances and we've made a list and made a plan and made it happen, and now we're enjoying the benefits. We have reached the top of a hill, but it's not the top of the mountain. You know, when you sometimes go for a walk on the hill, you see the summit ahead and you think, I'm going to get to the very top, and you get to the very top and it's not the very top. There's another peak ahead of you. Well, that's the case with what we're doing here now. Reaching a place of financial control is not the end of this journey. Okay, maybe you've achieved financial success. But financial success is not the same as success in life. You can be financially successful and not be successful in life. You can have savings and a balanced budget, but your life is not what it should be. Money is a means to an end. It's not an end in itself. In fact, if you make money an end in itself, there's a Bible word for that. It's called idolatry. And it's very easy to do because as humans, we are wired to worship. And when we give our attention to something, it can become an object of our worship. And when we give our attention to money, which is proper in its own place, but when we give it our attention, if we give it all of our attention and all of our allegiance and make it our top priority, it becomes idolatrous. And so the love of money becomes a root of evil. And you read reports and news about people who died and left millions of euro behind, and you think, why did they do that? Like, had they no plan for what to use the money for? Was it just the accumulation of money was their goal? And that can produce miserliness. Someone who prefers not to pay their bills, let someone else pay the bill, who sort of shrinks back when it's time to make a contribution. Or has an addiction to saving. You look at that money growing in your savings account, you think, whoa, 1,500. Next month it will be 1,600. And then your car breaks down and you need to fix it. And you think, oh, I don't want to spend the money, because you've now begun to love the money more than using the money to do what it's there for. So being organised financially helps you to get on with your life. That's great. But it's not your life. Achieving your financial goals is not success. Achieving your goals in life, that is success, especially when your life goals are aligned with God's will for you. So we have reached the top of the hill. Where do we go from here? Where are we going to go with our lives? Well, on this, Jesus told a parable, and I'm going to read it from Luke chapter 12, verse 13 to 21. The person who had financial goals but failed in their life goals. Luke chapter 12, verse 13. Someone in the crowd said to him, "Teacher, tell my brother to divide the inheritance with me." I'm going to stop right there. If there's anything that's able to tear up families, it's money. And in particular, an inheritance. An inheritance that's not given the way someone thinks it should be given. And so they go to court against their siblings. My advice to you is this, in relation to your family finances and any inheritance that might arise for you or your siblings. Make up your mind in advance that if it turns out to be disappointing for you, you will pursue the maintenance of the relationships rather than the acquisition of the finances. Jesus says, make friends for yourself using money. Don't turn that around to say, make money from your friends, okay? Don't regard your family as being there to provide you with money, okay? Make friends with your money. Use your money to make friends. Don't use your friends or your family to make money. Also, don't use your money to make enemies, okay? So just conduct yourself in a way that places a priority on relationships. Anyway, back to the story in the gospel. Someone in the crowd said to him, "Teacher, tell my brother to divide the inheritance with me." I can see that this person was consumed with this one issue, the way the family finance had turned out badly, and it was consuming them. And when they met Jesus, this is what they want to talk to Jesus about. Can you imagine all the possibility there is in a relation with Jesus? And this is the big issue. But it can be hard to shake off these things. This thing affects your heart. You may have to fight to free your heart from an addiction to lesser loves. This time I will go on and read the parable. Someone in the crowd said to him, "Teacher, tell my brother to divide the family inheritance with me." Jesus replied, "Man, who appointed me a judge or an arbiter between you?" Then he said to them, "Watch out. Be on your guard against all kinds of greed." Greed is not so much my relation with other people as my relation with myself. It's all for me, more money for me, more money for me. All kinds of greed. A man's life does not consist in the abundance of his possessions. And he told them this parable. The ground of a certain rich man produced a good crop. He thought to himself, "What shall I do? I have no place to store my crops." Then he said, "This is what I'll do." Here's a man with a plan. "I will tear down my barns and build bigger ones. And there I will store all my grain and my goods. And I'll say to myself, you have plenty of good things. laid up for many years. Take life easy, eat, drink, and be merry. But God said to him, You fool, this very night your life will be demanded from you. Then who will get what you have prepared for yourself? This is how it will be with anyone who stores up things for himself, but is not rich toward God. Do you get this reflective thing in this person's life? Me, it's all for me. WIFM, that radio station we love to listen to. What's in it for me? What's in it for me? He had more than enough, so he said, more for me for later. No thought of who else could benefit from this now. No thought of what would God have me do with this now. No, it's all about me, myself, and I. And so we see how money can disrupt family relationships or friendships. Money can disrupt your relationship with yourself by just bringing you into a place of greed, which is not a healthy place even for you. And money can disrupt your relationship with God by causing you not to be rich towards God, but just seeing money as self-serving. So the question is not, what will you do with your money? The question is, what will you do with your life? Your money will help you to get there. Listen to the voice of God. What is his call to you? Don't look in your pocket and say, oh, I've 50 euro. What will I buy? Look up to heaven and say, Lord, here I am. Speak. Your servant is listening. So find out what your purpose is from God. Find out his purpose for your life. Then use your money to take you there. It's one of the tools that you will use to do the things that God calls you to do. So if God has called you to do something that requires training, well, maybe you can save for and pay for that training course you need. Become the person God has called you to be. So use your money to take you to that higher mountaintop, the purpose of God in your life, the kind of person you're to become, the kind of neighbour you're to be, and the kind of parent you're to be. And like I said before, don't just throw money at your children's problems. Teach your children to tidy up after themselves, especially when individuals have grown up with poverty themselves and then they want to give their children everything. So the poor dears, instead of having them tidy their bedroom, you hire someone to come in once a week and tidy up the house and tidy up their bedrooms. So they never learn. They don't learn discipline. And then they're not able to engage in adult relationships responsibly because they never had to do things for themselves and take responsibility for themselves. So even if you do have money, and I hope you have plenty, don't let that become something that is a curse rather than a blessing to you and to your family. Character is worth more to your children. The legacy you leave your children in relational things, in discipline, is worth more than the legacy you will leave them financially. So pay attention to what God has called you to do, the work he has given you to do, the impact he has called you to make. As the House Fires song says, I will build my life. I will build my life upon your love. It is a sure foundation. So it is. And one of the tools you use in building your life is the tool of money. You use money to make choices, to do things, to buy things, to go places, to help others. So money is a tool to build your life, not the other way around. So use it well. Yes, keep an eye on your budget, but keep your two eyes fixed on Jesus. So that's our challenge now as we go on from here, having looked at this issue of taking control of our finances. The big challenge is, having reached the summit of the first hill, which is getting control of our finances, is now to take that bigger look at the vista that's ahead, looking up to heaven and say, God, what will you have this person to do with my life? And now that you're not plagued by debt and by your obligation to the chaos that your financial mismanagement has brought into your life, now you're able to go forward with doing the things that God has called you to do. And may God bless you as you do that. And may he provide for you your daily bread and provide an abundance, so you'll have an abundance to enjoy and to share with anyone who has need, and that you'll always have a sufficiency for everything that he has called you to do. So go and be blessed and be a blessing in Jesus' name.